the data I have created one list, or inside the list I have defined four number of tuple, okay, and which contain a both values, right? Now the point is, the question is, let's suppose if I'm going to tell you you have to show this particular data. So when you're going to use this particular method, so this is a one inbuilt method you are trying to use here, which is you can simply use from a list, right? So when you're going to use a short method here, so what you will expect here, so just look at the result, what you are getting here. So the data has been showed, but the by default the data has been showed by the first value of your tuple. Just look at the example, the 0 and 1 and 10 and 39, because the default when you're going to use a short method here, either you can also use a sorted function. That was a one different function you can use to short. Now but the point is, the main point is, when you are trying to show your data here, the by default your data has been showed using the first value of each and every tuple, either if you have a 3 and the 4 values as well, but the by default it will show it by the first value. Now that's a issue, or that's a another question. Now the point is, actually you have to show your data, but that was a one another condition to show your data. You have to show that data, okay, you have to show all the tuples inside the data according to the second value of the tuple, or the according to the last value of your tuple, okay. And what result you are expecting here, because if you're going to show it according to the last value, so what result you gonna expect? So the first value should be this, right? Because which you will contain the 39 and the 0. Let me put this particular value at the first, okay. So this type of result you are expecting, and which value you will get a second place, this value, because inside this you have a 2, right? That was a greater than along 0, and the 10 and the 20. So this particular sequence you want, okay. So now just try to understand the concept of the short function or short method, you can simply say. So let me open the help, okay. Inside the help I'm gonna look at for the short. So that's what I need to do. So I'm trying to open the help for the list.short, and here you will get the whole short here. So just look at the example, how many number of argument you can simply pass. You're gonna pass the self, which is actually already what I have passed here, data. That was actually the object referencer, okay. Just you can also define the asterisk and number of arguments, arbitrary arguments, right? And this is a one actual keyword argument you can also pass, and the keyword name will be the key. And now what is actually the key is, just look at that this particular concept. If a key function is given, right, so apply it once to each item and show it according to them. What does it mean? Actually inside the key always we have to define any function, okay. You cannot define any single variable. When you want to pass a key value inside the short function, always you have to define a function, and just you can simply pass that particular function inside the key, and according to that function your values will be short, because ascending or the descending according to the function values, because that particular function will be applied at each and every item of your list. That's why the keys how want to use inside this particular method. So let me show. So this is a one data, guys. Now I want to sort this data according to the last value of my tuple, okay. And to sort my data according to the last value, what I'm going to do here, so I'm going to create a one normal function, okay. So this is the one function I want to create here. The function name could be anything. So let me put a function name last, okay. And inside the function I'm going to put a one argument as well, the n or the t. Now at the end, when I'm going to call my function, okay, at place of my call I'm going to return something to the user. So I can simply return the tu as well, but instead of that I'm going to return the last index of tuple, or the last index of the n. You can use any variable name here. So that's a function what I have created, okay. If you're gonna execute this particular function is standalone without any another argument. So let's suppose if I'm gonna mention the Sachin here, what does it mean? So it will give you the n from here. Why? Because when you're gonna pass Sachin, that particular string you are trying to pass here, this particular string will be initialized inside the n, and at the return you will get the last index of that particular string. That's why you will get the n here. But instead of this particular string, if you're gonna mention inside any tuple, or you're gonna pass any list here inside the last, so let me pass a one another tuple. Just look at the example, okay. So what you will get, you will get the 3 from the tuple. So that's why I have created this function. Now the point is, if I want to short my data, just I can simply short my data using this method, data.short, or inside the short just you can simply pass a one keyword argument, and the keyword you're gonna use will be key, okay. And the what value you're gonna use of the key, so just you can simply pass the value of the key will be the last. Because if you're gonna check out the help here, if a key function is given, what I have already passed, that particular function will apply at once to each list item and short them, Okay, that's why this particular function will be execute on top of this tuple, after that this, and so on, that last of tuples here. And now whenever it will execute this function, it will always return the last value, and according to the last value your item will be gonna show it here. So let's execute this particular statement what I have written in this line. So let's execute and just look at the example. So this is what I have done, guys. So now using this particular function, I have showed my particular list, and now just look at the example: 0, 2, 10, and the 20. So according to the last element of I tuple, so I can simply sort my data using the normal function. The point is, now where we gonna use a anonymous function? The point, because you are trying to define a function here, right? So now the point, if you will discuss about the anonymous function, in case of anonymous function, there's a no need to define a function before using that. Okay, because you are trying to calling a function here. In case of anonymous function, just where you are trying to calling your function, at the same time you can also declare and initialize the function at the same time. There's a no need to declare the function before calling. Okay, that was actually the anonymous is. And to take the same example, excuse me, and to take the same example, okay, so what do you want to use here? So let me put the same list, just copy, okay, and just paste here. So this is a list, guys, what I'm going to use. Now this is a data. So I want to show this the same list, but using the anonymous function. This time I will not use a one declared function. And how you going to use an anonymous function, just try to understand the syntax. Okay, otherwise I'm going to explain the syntax in brief as well, but just try to understand the concept why we are using an anonymous function. Because now you have to pass a one function, okay, inside the key. This is a one parameter you are trying to pass. Because in case of normal function, first of all you have declared your function, after that you are trying to calling your function. But in case of anonymous, just instantly at the time of call, just we can simply declare. How you gonna declare? Just using a one lambda keyword. So lambda is a one keyword which is used Python to declare the anonymous function. There's a no need to declare before the using lambda. Just the syntax of the anonymous function I'm going to explain. Just you have to use a lambda here. Okay, you have to define the arguments colon, and just you have to define the expression. This is what you have to define. The default nature of the lambda, it will always return the expression what you want to return here. So this is a one syntax, so you can simply say synopsis to understand what is actually the anonymous is. Now the point is, let me, okay, this is a syntax, guys. Oops, that's cool. Now the point, you have to initialize the lambda function here. I'm gonna take a one argument n. This is a function definition. Just I'm gonna return the last index of n. So that's what I have defined. So I didn't initialize any function before using that. So I want to sort my data according to the last value of my tuple. Just I'm gonna use a lambda keyword. After that, I'm gonna put a one argument, and what argument I have used here. At the same time, I'm going to return the last index of that argument. And now the data has been short. Let me show you. So let's look at the example: 0, 2, 10, or 20. According to the last element, you have showed your data. That's a beauty of the anonymous function. There's a no need to define before the using that. So let's take a normal example to understand. Okay. So let's suppose if you will discuss about the anonymous function, hopefully you got the idea, guys, where we want to use the anonymous, right? Why we are calling anonymous this function, because no need to declare that function. So let's take a one basic example. If you want to add two numbers, okay, how you going to use the anonymous function? So in case of normal function, just you have to use this particular method, right? Just you can simply use add. You can put the two number of argument if you want. At the return, you can simply return the sum of both numbers. This is a normal function to add two numbers. Okay, done. In case of anonymous function, just you have to use a lambda. How many number of argument you want to take from a user? Just you have to pass those argument before the colon: a comma b comma c comma d. How many you want? I want only two arguments. And what you want to do? So just you can define your text expression here. So I want to return a plus b. That's a normal expression of the anonymous. And now this time, because I didn't calling my function, I am not calling my function right here. So that's why I'm gonna put this particular function inside a variable. Okay, this I have stored my function inside the variable. If you will not store, it look like return a function object here. So that's why I'm going to store my function inside the X. Now the same thing, just if you are calling a normal function, there's the same method you're going to use to call the anonymous function as well. That inside the X, you have to put two number of arguments and you will get the result 10 plus 2, you will get the 12. If you're going to mention the 22 here, you will get the 32. So that's how the anonymous function is work, guys. And this is a one syntax how you're going to use anonymous function is. Okay. The one question from Sora, why it's called as anonymous? Because where you're gonna use this function, you don't have to define, you don't have to declare before using that. That's why you are calling the anonymous function, because what I have defined here inside the data short, I have defined and I have used here. There's a no fingerprint in your program for that function. That's why it's called anonymous. Let's move ahead. Either you can also create a different program using the lambda, guys. So let's suppose if you want to return a square of any numbers, but if you want to return a one exponent of the number as well, so just you can simply use anonymous there as well. So let me create a one program. Y lambda, I'm going to take only one number from users and I'm going to return the square of that number. Done. So oops, let me execute. When I'm going to call a Y, I'm going to put a 5, you will get a 25, right? If I'm going to put a 25, so what you will get from here, 625. That's how you can simply create a functions using the anonymous, and that was the only lambda keyword you have to use to declare a functions. So let's move ahead. Okay, hopefully you got the idea. Now where we're gonna use these functions, okay, let's take a more example to understand the concept. So if you have heard about the filter, map, and the reduce, so they are the three more functionality or method or function you can simply call, you can simply use inside the Python: filter, map, and reduce. Okay, now where we will use filter, map, and reduce, so let me explain. Let's take an example. If you have some data, okay, and the data could be anything. Let's suppose if I want some data here, just I can simply store my data. This is a data, or either let me create a one new data. Inside the data, I'm going to put some sort of numbers, random numbers. That's cool. Okay, let's put more numbers. That's enough. So I have my data here, and now what I need to do, so let's take an example. If you want to filter your data according to any parameters, so I'm going to give you the two example to understand the filter, guys. The first example I'm going to include, let's suppose you want the even or the odd numbers from here. The second example I'm going to do, if you have a huge number of files in your list, okay, and you want to search only .py extension file from a huge list, okay, which type of program you're going to return using the anonymous function. So I'm going to give it to example to understand the filter, what is actually the filter is. So first of all, if you want to search the odd or even number from here, if you want trying to search the prime number or anything what you want, so what I'm going to do here, so first of all you have to decide. So I'm going to use a filter. Okay, so filter one is an inbuilt function you can simply use. And now how you going to use a filter, just not to worry, use a help, right? I'm going to put a inside the help. So when you will call a filter, just inside the filter you have to pass two number of arguments. The first should be a function or none. The second should be a iterable object. Okay, so exactly you have to pass two number of argument. The first should be a function, the second should be a iterable object. So in my case, I have a one iterable object name as data, and in the first place I have to pass a one another function inside the function, right? That's what you need to do. So what I'm going to do here, so just if I'm trying to call my filter, so I have to pass a one function here. Okay, I will pass a function later, not to worry. And just I have to pass a one iterable object. I have passed a data. So now just you have to pass a one function. In my case, I will not define a function before using that. Instantly, I'm going to define a function here, and instantly I'm going to call my function as well. And to using that method, what I'm going to do here, just we can simply use a lambda keyword for that. Okay, so I want to define a function here at the same time. What sorry, which functionality I want. So I want to print the odd or even numbers. So on that time, I'm going to take a one value at one time. So I can simply take a n here or the x or the I, what you want. So let me put a I. Okay. So what it will do for you, actually, when the filter will execute, so one by one from it will give you the one value. It will initialize the one value from data to I. Okay, one by one in sequence. So first of all, it will place 0 inside the I. After that, it will place 1 2 3 initialize inside the I. After that, and so on. how many elements you have in your sequence. Now I have defined a argument inside the lambda. After that, just you have to define the text expression. What expression I'm going to define here? Just I'm going to define I when I'm going to divide the I, okay, by 2, and what value are trying to expect? 0. Okay, and now when this particular condition will true, so it will place the element at the same time. Okay, otherwise it will give you the false. And now in which data structure you want a result? So I want my result in case of list, so I'm going to put the list before the filter. Just look at the example. So all the items you will get from the data, all are the even items. If you want the odd item from there, just you have to use a not equal sign, right? This is the one basic condition I have defined, and you will get the odd number from the data. That's how the filter is work. Just you can simply filter according to your requirement, whatever condition you're gonna define there. So let's take one more example to understand the concept. Let's suppose if you have a n number of files, okay, let me find out all the number of files. So there's a one module name as os, okay, or either there's a one module you can simply import sys. My bad, that was a os. From the os, just you can simply use a one function name list dir. When you're going to execute this particular function, it will list all the items in current directory, in current folder. Either you can simply say, so these are the file which is present in my current directory or folder, or you will get all number of files as a string inside the list. Okay, that was a one os module what I have used here. From os module I'm trying to execute a one function list dir. Sometime you have to use this type of functionality. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this particular data inside the data too. Okay, what actually I have inside the data too, just look at the example. So these are the values inside I have stored inside the data too. So I have stored a number of files. Okay, .py extension, .ipynb extension, without extension file, or either img on that pnb, and the n number of files. What do you want? So the point is I want only .py file from the data too. Okay, so you don't have to define a multiple lines of loop here. Just you can simply define a filter. And how you're going to define, just look at the example. I'm going to show this particular code. So list filter, inside the filter you have to define function. I will define later where I want to execute my function on top of data 2. In place of function I'm going to put a lambda keyword. I'm going to put a one file at one time, I colon, and in an expression actually I have to use a one condition. Which condition I'm going to use? So that was a one, if you had remember, that was a one method of the string I dot ends with. Okay, when I'm going to use this method, so it will let you know if your string ends with .py, it will give you the true, otherwise it will give you the false. Okay, so let me explain, don't be confused. So let's suppose I have a name, okay, Sachin. I have another name, surname, the boy, or the grant. Just take an example. Now the point, if I'm gonna name is ends with, sorry, my apology, ends with, and what I'm gonna do, let's suppose if I'm gonna put S. Okay, so just look at the example. It will give you the false because the name has been end with the N. So instead of N, if I'm gonna put the N here, just you will get that true. That's how the ends with function is work. So the same thing I have done here. So when I'm gonna execute this particular thing here, just look at the example. Okay, only you will get the .py file from data. If you want to more short this particular function, because here you just have stored this particular thing here, either you can also put this particular function instead of data too. Okay, even you can do more short of your program. This is a only one line what I have stored here, and instead of creating your variable before using that, just all these all the things I have done inside only one line. So that's the beauty of the Python, just you can simply use. So first of all I have used the list function. Inside the list function I have passed a filter. Inside the filter I have passed a one anonymous function. This is a one argument, and each and every time I'm going to check my argument should be answered .py, then it will give you the true. And from where it will take your values. This is a one iterable object os.listdir. It will give you the one list of your files in your current directory. That's how you would be able to fetch the .py file from your current file. That's how it will work. Let's move ahead. This is the one example to understand the filter, right? Either you can also use a different extension what you want. So let's suppose if you want file IPYNB. Okay, that's cool. You will get the all number of notebooks here. So that's a beauty. Okay, so let's move ahead. Now we have understood the concept of the filter, guys, and now if you have still any doubt, just you can drop the message into the chat box. Let's move ahead. Now we have to discuss about the map. Okay, so now we have discussed filter. What is actually the filter is to filter your data according to the different methods. Because in filter it will give you the true or false. If the condition is true, the value still was there, otherwise in case of false you will not get the value. So what is actually the filter is, sorry, what is actually the map is. So in case of map, if you will discuss about the map here. So if you have a data, the data could be anything. If you have this data or either, oh my bad, so let me put another. If you have a data too, okay, so you have a different type of data. What do you want? So the you want to multiply all the numbers by the 2. Just look at the term. Okay, if you will look at the term in case of English, filter, just you are trying to filter some result. If you're going to use map, so you are trying to map any object along with the all object you have stored inside the data. Okay, so that's why the Python is easy. So now the point is I want to map some data along with the all object of my data. Okay, so for that, just the same method you're going to use, map. Okay, either you can simply search using the help. Inside the map you have to pass a function, after that the iterable object, the same thing. So let me use a map. I'm going to pass a function here later, and where I'm going to place my function, data. That's what I need to do. Now the point in which data structure you want your output in list, just I have defined the list here. Let me zoom in, might be it's better now. Okay, that's what I need to define. Excuse me, just a moment. Watch date hyphen and one. Okay, that's cool. So what I need to do, so this is a one list. I have defined the map and the function and the data. So I want to execute my map function along with this iterable object, but what I need to do, just I have to define my lambda function, anonymous function. So I'm going to define my function here, lambda. Actually what I need to map, so let's suppose took an example, you're going to took a one argument. Okay, the argument could be anything, and you want to multiply that particular object along with it too, or either you are trying to do the square of that particular number. It's your choice, you can do anything what you want. Either you can simply subtract a specific value from there. So but right now I want to do the square of my all elements of my data list. Let's execute, just look at the result. So it will square all the numbers. The 12 is 144, 4 will be the 16, 2 will be the 4, and all the values. That's how the map function is work. That you can map anything what you want along with your objects. Either if I'm gonna use a map along with the data too. Let's suppose took an example. If you want these file names, right? But what you want to do capitalize all the file name. Okay. So on that point, what are you gonna use here? Instead of using this method, just I'm gonna do upper. Oops, my bad. So that's what I need to execute. And you have converted your all file names into the capital letter. There's a no need to define a different loop. There's a no need to define the some sort of conditions. Just we can do this particular task into a only one line using the map, using the anonymous function. And now your whole items you have generated here in your capital letter. That's how the beauty of the map function you can simply use in your program. Okay, so that's how you're gonna use, guys. Let's move ahead. Now we have discussed about the map as well. You can map anything what you want. If you want to filter, just you can simply use a filter to filter out your data. And the last we have to discuss about the reduce. Okay, what is actually the reduce is. So in case of reduce, just you have to understand a one concept. Actually reduce is not a inbuilt, yeah, that was a inbuilt, but you have to import before using that. Okay, so that was reduce is the one function which is you have to import before using that. Okay, from a specific module. Which module you have to import? The module name you're going to use func tools. That was a one module. From this particular module you have to import the reduce before using it. So otherwise you will get an error, okay, reduce is not defined, okay, name error. But I have import the reduce from my func tools. And what it will do for you, it will reduce your data. How it will reduce? So let me explain one example. Let's suppose took an example, you have a data. Okay, What you need to do, you want to reduce data, okay, in which way? So let me explain. Let's take an example. At same time, when I'm going to use a reduce here, so first of all, let's take an example. I want to add my old numbers, or either I want to multiply my old numbers and create a one number here. So first of all, I'm going to take a two number of argument. Okay, so a and b. So when you're going to execute the reduce here, I'll let you know the syntax as well. So I'm going to define a two number of argument inside the lambda a comma b. So it will take the 0 and 1 2 3. So that will be a, that will be b. So what operation you want to perform, you're going to define inside the expression of your lambda. Let's take an example. I have add both the numbers. So when you're going to add both the numbers, so what it will do for you, so it will add both the numbers for you. So let me add. Let's take an example. Now that's cool. Hopefully you are understandable. That's cool. Okay, so these are the numbers 0 and 1 2 3. When I'm going to add to the numbers, so just remove the one number from here. So that's what I have done. So this time, if you are able to see, actually, let me increase the line. So that's how it look like. 0 and 1 2 3. Oops, my bad. Now that's cool. Now this time, actually, it will take the two next number from your data set. Okay, now this time the value of the A is 1 2 3. The value of the B will be 12. Again, it will reduce both the elements. Okay, and for you it will create again one element. Just you have to add 12 inside the 1 2 3. That will be 5 and that will be 3, right? So and now just you have to remove the 12 from here. That's how it's worked. And now this time it will take the next two element from your data. So that's how the reduce gonna work, like in a sliding window method. Okay, algorithm. So it will always take a two element from you and what operation you have defined in your lambda. So it will do for you. So let's take an example. Let me clear this drawing here and let's execute the main program. So hopefully you got a one idea where I'm going to use reduce. So this is the one original data what I'm going to use here. Okay, what I need to do, I want to add all the numbers what I have present inside the data. Just you can simply use a reduce for that. Inside the reduce, just you know very well, you have to define a function and the data. And plus of function, I'm going to define a one function here. The function will be lambda. I'm going to put a two number of argument a comma b, and what I want the sum of both the numbers. That's actually I want from my function. Enter and you will get the sum 250. When you're going to add all the numbers, still always you the sum of the both numbers will be 250. Either if you want to do the multiplication, or either you can also use it one different type of data too. Let me define a data too here. Inside this, I'm going to put some numbers in sequence: third, fourth, five, six, seven, eight, and yeah, we can also do the list comprehensive and the range. It's not to worry, just have to define a data too here. Let me use my data too. When I'm going to add my old numbers, hopefully you got the idea. When you're going to add 0 to 10, you will get the 55, right? So exactly you will get it. So that's how the reduce is work in your program. Okay, hopefully you got the idea, guys, how you're going to reduce your work in your program. So it will reduce the data. If sometime you want to do the multiplication, either you can use a multiply b. So it will multiply all the numbers what you have present here and will let you know the result. The result will be 0 because you have used a 0. So I'm going to remove the 0. Let one more time. That's cool. Let's check it out. So this will be the result of yours. Just I have multiply 1 by 2 by 3 by 4 by 6 7 8 9 10. Okay, so that's how the reduce gonna work in your program, guys. Okay, and how it would recognize a and b. Actually, one each and every time one it will take the first two argument of your iterable object. So first of all, it will take a 1 and 2. Okay, it will initialize the first inside the a, it will initialize the second inside the b according to the sequence. Now when it will take and it will do the expression from there. Okay, from both the argument will be removed from there. Okay, and it will return a new argument. It will return a new data. It will return the sum of both the data, and it will place at the same of the same thing. So now it will give you the 3. That's why you have stored the 3. The second time it will, when the next statement will execute of this particular iterable object, this time it will take the next two element. Now this time it will return the 6. Okay, that's how the reduce gonna work in your program. So now this time it will add the 6 plus 4 and so on until 10. Okay, that's how gonna reduce is work in your program. Let's move on. Let's move ahead. Okay, that's you're gonna use a lambda map filter reduce in our program, and these are called the anonymous programming, right? Now we have to understand the concept of the list comprehensive, guys. List comprehensive, not to worry about the spelling. Okay, just like before right now. So if we will discuss about the list comprehensive, okay, what is actually the list comprehensive is. So let me know. In case of list comprehensive, actually when if you are trying to create a one data object, okay, in the previous session actually we have used a one list comprehensive as well. Okay, but this time what I'm gonna do here, let's take an example. I have create a one data, or either sometime if you want to create a one matrix as well. There you know very well how you're gonna create a matrix. Just you have to define the some sort of loops there. Okay. So let's suppose if you want to create a matrix of 10 by 10. Let's take an example to understand the concept. Now, how you gonna create a matrix of 10 by 10, or either you can simply take a numbers from a user. Let me take a number from a user and okay, integer input function, enter row and column. Okay, either if you can take two number of from users m and the n, might be that will be the better. Okay, I'm gonna, that's cool. So just give the number of row, enter rows. Okay, and I'm gonna put the enter number of columns. That what I need to execute. Good. Okay, so that's what I need to execute, guys. So I'm gonna put enter rows. I want 10 rows, I want 10 column as well. Either you can mention the 8 or 9 columns. So now just I have executed one shell. Now you have to create a one matrix of 10 by 9. Okay. Now without list comprehensive, just you can create a matrix, but using a nested loop. Okay. And when you're going to create that particular type of program, it will take a time, it will consume your more code as well. So let me create a matrix. Okay. This is a one list where I'm going to store my matrix here. I'm going to define a one loop. Just try to understand the loop. I'm going to use a range function. Inside the range, I'm going to put my M, how much rows I want. So I'm going to put M here. After that, what I need to do, just I'm going to execute another loop for J in range, and I'm going to put the N here. Okay. It will give you the numbers. Now this time I'm going to create a one another list as well, where I'm going to put the all items of the J. Temp dot append inside the J. That's what I had done. Instead of J, just you can also put the 0 and the XYZ what you want. At the end, what I need to do, just I'm gonna append the whole temp inside the matrix. Now done. Let me print my matrix. Let's execute. Just look at this, how your matrix it look like. Just have created a number of items. If I'm gonna merge both the row, that's how I'm gonna execute again, guys. So I want 10 by 5. You will get 10 by 5. That's how it works, right? This time just to have add the numbers, same 0 1 2 3 0 1 2 3, and you instead of Z, you can also put the another element. What element I want, you can also put the only 0. So this time when you're going to execute, only the 0 will be placed by 10 by 10 matrix. It could be anything. The point is, instead of creating this big program, okay, to creating a matrix, you can simply use a list comprehensive method there. What is actually the list comprehensive method? Just you can use the for loop into a one single line. Okay, how you gonna use? So for I in range, how much range you want, you can press the value of M or N. Let's suppose I'm gonna put directly 10 here. What does it mean? So this is the one loop syntax you have used. But this time, if you are trying to using a list comprehensive, so this particular loop should be work inside the list. This is what I have done. For I in range, when your loop will execute, you will return the value of I 10 times. Okay. So that particular value I'm going to store inside the list. So this is what you have done. So actually the syntax of the list comprehensive, first of all, inside the list, just you have to put the value. Okay. That was a 1 second statement of the loop, or body of the loop you have to put before executing the loop. And now that's you have defined the syntax of the loop. For I in range, it will execute 10 times, and always it will give you the return I, and that particular value will be initialized inside the list. So that's how it's work, guys. Okay, this is the one method. Or instead of I, you can put any value, 0. Just look at the 0. If you want to put the Sachin here, so the Sachin will add 10 times. just look at the value. Okay, or either just look at the example. Okay, either just I have put that 0 instead of this 0. Just if I'm going to put another list, just look at the example. Or inside the another list, actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to define another element. What I'm going to define 0 for j in range. I'm going to put the 10 here. That's how you're going to define a one matrix into a only one line. So let me execute. I'll just look at the example how it works. Okay, that's how this is the one program you have created in multiple line in 10 lines, and you have created the same matrix into the one line as well. So this is the beauty of the list comprehensive. Just this is the one syntax you can simply use. Also, you can simply define some sort of conditions using the if else into the one single line statement as well. Okay, and you can also use a tuple comprehensive, but in case of tuple comprehensive, it will generate a one generator object. Okay, or in case of dictionary comprehensive, you can also use, you would be able to generate a dictionary as well. And how the dictionary comprehensive will gonna work, so let me show you. Let's take an example for I in range. Done. I want 10 range here. What I need to do, let's suppose if I'm going to put the values inside the list dictionary, I'm going to put I just colon. Actually you have to put two values, right? So by default let me put the none. Let's take an example what it will do for you. So it will create a one dictionary which will contain 10 keys. Okay, the keys name 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, but the values what you have contain none in all the values. Okay, sometime if you have to create a one dictionary which will contain 100 keys, this you can create using this method. Okay, you would be able to create, but at the same time instead of none you can also put the same value. If let's suppose if I want to create a one dictionary of 100 numbers, and inside the 100 numbers I want to put the square of those number as well, just use this method. So one, the loop will execute each and every time the I will return, and in place of I it will return as a key, and the value of that particular I will be the square of that particular number. So that's how it works. 00 11 24 39 4 16 525 at the last 99 9801. So that's how the beauty of the list and the dictionary comprehensive. Just you can simply solve the big problem into the one line as well using these methods. And now if you have still any doubt, just let me know or drop your queries into the chat box from the previous session or today's session as well. What is the advantage of the dictionary? And actually the dictionary is the one main data structure inside the Python. Okay, each and everything whatever you're gonna create will be stored inside the dictionary, because inside the dictionary just you can simply map a value using the a particular object as well. Instead of just using, instead of remember the index number inside the dictionary, just you can simply store the pairs of the values. Okay, just like in Java you have used a hash function there, right? So just in case of in case of Python, just we are using a dictionaries here. Okay, so any one of them, if you have still hand out, just you can drop your queries into the chat box, guys. Okay, what's the best opinion list? Yeah, dictionary. This question asked me. Oh, actually, the depend on your requirement. Okay, so let's suppose if you will discuss about the dictionary and the list. The one example you have to understand. Let's take an example, because in case of dictionary, whatever value you're gonna store, all the values have two objects. The first will be the key, and the second will be the value of that particular key. Another thing, you cannot repeat the keys here. Okay, each and every time you have to use a unique key in your dictionary. If you have a same type of key, okay, then you would not be able to define the same key again and again in your dictionary. But in case of list, okay, if you want to store normal values, okay, now the point, then you have to use a list, because in case of list you would not be able to fetch your values using the name, because in case of dictionary you can simply fetch the values using the name. But in case of list you're gonna use a index method there, but in case of dictionary just you can simply use a normal naming method using the particular variable name. Just you can simply fetch the values from the dictionary. But in case of list, always you have to use, or always you have to remember the index of element what you want to fetch from there. That's why it will depend on your requirement, which you want to use according to your requirement of your software or the application. Any another doubt, guys? Okay, so let's take on one example. If you want to print this particular list, what I have created here, whatever matrix I have created here, let's suppose if you want to print this particular matrix without a square bracket, just you can simply use a one very normal method here. What method I'm talking about? Let's suppose if you want to print this particular matrix, so let me put this particular inside the data. Let's take an example. I have created a one matrix. Just look at the matrix here inside the data. That was a one matrix. Either that you can print look like this. Okay, this is the one data you have stored. But I want to print this particular data without the commas and without the square bracket in a matrix form. Then just you have to use a normal loop there, or either you can define one function. Now what I'm going to do here. So let me define for I in. Okay, what I'm going to do here. So let me take the data from there. Either you can simply use the range as well. Either you can also define the range, and what range I'm going to define. Let's suppose the length of the data. This is what I need to define. I'm going to put the 4j in range. What I'm going to do, I'm going to length of the data the same because I have defined the same number of elements here. That's cool. Then now I'm going to print my element. What element I have to print? From data, I have to print the I and the j. That's what I need to print here. And each and every time if I'm going to use this method, so it will print all the values in one line. Each and every time it will give you the slash n. Now you have to remove the slash n of your elements. What I have done, just I'm going to use a one keyword argument of my print. That will be the and I'm going to put the value of and will be space, double space, what do you want. So now this time it will print all the values of your whole matrix into the only one line. But you want to add a one break as well. Okay, whenever the element of one row will finish, you won't add a one new line each and every time. So now what I need to do, just I have to add a one new line after printing. Just I'm going to use a one print statement. So that's a one another method I can simply mention. And using this method, just look at the example. You can simply print a full proof matrix into a normal way without any square bracket, without any commas. Just I have print all the items what I have stored here into a format. So that's how it's gonna work. Okay. Okay. So if you have any doubt, guys, just let me know into the chat box. Okay, this is a topics what we're gonna cover in today's session. We have discussed about the anonymous function and all these things. Okay, and I'm gonna share this particular notebook along with you as well. Okay, and after today's session, you will also get a one assignment. Okay, you're gonna complete. Might be you will get an assignment at the until the morning. Okay, so now I'm gonna waiting for your doubts. If you have any doubt, just let me know into the chat box. Okay, so the one doubt is, what's the difference between the global variable and the local variable, and what is closure? Actually, the closure, that was a one different thing. A closure is nothing. Closure is a one combination of the function bundled together. Okay, in case of different. Okay, just you have used a closure in case of JavaScript most of the time. And the difference between the global and the local variable, that was a one very basic difference. Okay, what is actually the difference? Let me explain. You can ask any doubt, guys. If you have any doubt, just you can drop your queries. Okay, just you have to resolve your issues. So what I'm going to do here, let's suppose if you want to understand the concept of the global and the local variable, what is actually both of them. So let me explain. So let's suppose to an example, I have defined a variable name x is equal to 10. I'm going to print the value of x, not worry, it's cool. This time I'm going to define a one function, hello. Inside this function, okay, what I will do, so I'm going to define the value of x will be 20. I'm going to print the value of x as well. Okay, and this time no issue, still you will get the tell here. Once I'm gonna do, so I'm gonna call my hello function as well after executing the hello. The point is actually when you will execute this particular function, so inside this particular function you have defined a value of x is 20, and that particular value actually the local variable you have defined, and whatever value you're going to define inside the main body, that particular variable will be the global variable. What does it mean? Because inside the function I have initialized the value of x is 20, but after calling my function, if I'm going to call my value, if I'm going to print my value of my x according to a normal method, the value should be changed. You will get the 20 here, but actually that was a one local variable and the x was a global variable. Again, after printing, after calling your function as well, if you're gonna printing the value of x again, so still that particular value still 10, not 20. That's a difference between the global, because x1 is a global variable and the what you have defined here, that was one a local variable. And sometime if you want to define a global variable inside a function, on that time just you have to use this method global x, or either you can also define another variable y. Okay, because the point is if you will define a new variable inside this particular thing, this particular variable will not be able to fetch from outside this particular thing. Just look at the example. Let me take another example, double x, because that was a y another function. So let's try to print the value of double x. Just look at this. Double x is not defined because that was a one local variable, but you can create this variable as a global. What I have done, just now you can print this value and now you will get the 30, because inside the local function just you have defined a one global variable. That's how it works. Can you explain about the inheritance topic? Okay. Okay, mix to read and the data easy and to change the data function is list. Yep. Okay. So actually in case of inheritance guys, okay, that was a no very big concept actually. So in case of inheritance, what we have done, let's suppose took an example, you have a class A. Okay, inside a class A you have defined a multiple method. That was a one method you have defined m1. Okay, and now I'm gonna define a two method here and the m2. So that was a one class I have initialized. And now I have initialized a one another class as well, the class B. Inside this, I'm gonna define a M3 method. The method name could be anything. Okay. And I'm gonna put the pass here. That's what I have done. Now the point, if I'm gonna create a object of B class, that's how you're gonna create an object. Okay. Now you can call the methods only from B class. If you have created an object from B class, just look at this. M3, if you want to call a M3, so you would be able to call successfully, no issue. Oh, I didn't initialize. That's cool. Oh, my bad. Self, self, and the self. That's done. Create a variable, and now there's a no issue. Just you can simply call a M3 method from any object here. But the point, you would not be able to call the methods of the A class. Okay, because the B is an object of the B class here. So just look at the example, you would not be able to call. But what happen if you're gonna inherit? So what is actually done? This is a one single level inheritance what I have done here. And in this inheritance, I have inherit all the properties of those methods inside the object of class B, inside the class B. Now this time, all the objects of the class B would be able to execute the method of the class A as well, because I have inherited the properties of the A. Now this time I'm going to initialize the B object here. I'm going to call a M3, it's callable. If I'm going to call a my B dot M2, it's also callable, no error, because you have inherited all the properties of the A class inside the B class. Now any object of the B class would be able to call the M1 and M2 as well. That's how the inheritances work. So the closer is a function object. Remember that values in closing scopes, even if they are not present in the memory. Yep. Okay, there was a one right answer you have told. Any one of you guys? Okay, no doubt. So I'm gonna wrap up this session for today and see you in next session. Goodbye. Now you can wrap up this.